Imagine being chosen by God and then forced to run for your life. This is the story of David, anointed in secret, yet hunted in public. One moment, oil was poured over his head, a quiet declaration that he would be king. The next, he was back in the fields, as if nothing had changed. No crown, no throne, just a promise and patience. But the waiting didn't stay peaceful for long. David's courage brought him into the palace. His victory over Goliath made him known. Songs were sung about him. People celebrated him. What looked like the beginning of his rise became the start of his fall. Because favor attracted attention, and attention stirred jealousy. King Saul heard the praises, and something inside him shifted. The same man David honored now feared him. The same king he served now wanted him gone. And just like that, everything changed. Spears were thrown at him in the palace, not once, but more than once. What should have been a place of safety became a place of danger. Smiles turned into suspicion. Honor turned into hatred. David had to run. Not for a day, not for a week, but for years. He fled into the wilderness, hiding in caves, moving from place to place, never settling, never safe. He lived like a fugitive, constantly looking over his shoulder. Every sound could be a threat. Every shadow could be the end. This wasn't the life of a king. This was the life of someone trying to survive. And yet, he carried a promise inside him that didn't match what he was living. Can you imagine that tension? To know what God said, but not see it. To believe in a future while barely making it through the present. David wasn't just running from Saul. He was running with questions. God, you chose me, so why am I here? God, you anointed me, so why am I hiding? God, you promised, so why does this feel like punishment? The silence must have been heavy, but what made it even harder was the opportunity. There were moments, real moments, where David could have ended it all. Saul, the very man chasing him, stood vulnerable right in front of him, close enough to strike, close enough to take the throne in a single move. No one would have questioned it. In fact, the people around David encouraged it. This is your moment, they said. Take it, end this, step into what's yours. But David didn't move, because he understood something deeper than the pressure around him. He refused to take what God had not yet given. So instead of striking Saul, he stepped back. Instead of choosing revenge, he chose restraint. Instead of forcing the promise, he trusted the process. And that choice cost him more waiting, more nights in caves, more days in hiding, more uncertainty, more distance between him and the throne he was told would be his. David was anointed, but not yet appointed. A king living like a fugitive.
But what feels delayed is never denied when God is involved. Because while David was hiding, God was working. Every cave became a classroom. Every trial became training. Every moment of pressure was shaping something deeper within him. God wasn't just preparing David for a throne. He was preparing him to carry it. Because a crown placed on an unprepared heart can destroy a person. So the waiting had a purpose. In the wilderness, David learned what the palace could never teach him. He learned to depend on God when there was no one else to lean on. He learned to worship in isolation. He learned to trust without visible evidence. The hidden place wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. And then the season shifted. The running slowed. The fear began to fade. The chapter that felt endless finally reached its end. Saul's reign was over. Not by David's hand, not by revenge, not by force, but by God's timing. And just like that, the promise that once felt distant became reality. David stepped into the throne, not rushed, not stolen, not manipulated, but fulfilled. The same boy who was overlooked in the fields now stood as king. The same man who cried out in caves now ruled a nation. The same David who waited, trusted, and endured now carried the very promise he refused to force. And here's what makes his story powerful. It wasn't just about the crown. It was about the heart. David wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. He had moments of failure. But through it all, he never let go of God. He kept turning back. He stayed connected. He stayed surrendered. That's why he was called a man after God's own heart. Not because he never fell, but because he never stayed away. And his story still speaks. It speaks to the person who feels forgotten, to the one who's tired of waiting, to the one whose life doesn't look like the promise they're holding on to. It reminds you that being chosen doesn't mean being exempt from struggle, that delay doesn't mean denial, that where you are right now is not where your story ends. So if you feel like you're in a cave season, hidden, overlooked, uncertain, don't lose heart, because what God has spoken over your life still stands. You don't have to force it. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to compromise to reach it. When the time is right, the door will open, the season will shift, and the crown will come, just like it did for David.